Hello and welcome everyone to the second video in the intersection safety lineup, where I'm going to start walking you through the first of 3 common maneuvers one makes at an intersection using something that I call the 3-2-1 plan. So let's call this video part 1, and it's all about going straight through at an intersection. Now, in the first intersection safety video, we touched on the different vehicle lengths or distances from the intersection and what seeing habits we would do at each distance. And now, using the 3-2-1 plan, these 3 circles represent those distances. So 3 represents 3 vehicle lengths from the intersection, 2 equals 2, and of course 1 equals 1 vehicle length. So in regards to this easy to follow safety plan, all I want you to do is to keep this phrase in mind every time you approach an intersection. Okay, ready? Here's the phrase. 3, 2, 1, go! Now, with that phrase in mind, as I'm closing in on the 3 vehicle lengths from the intersection, I know I have things to do, and it's going to involve these 3 steps. Step 1, seeing habits. Step 2, speed control. And step 3, communication. So I try to remember it as the 3 at 3 plan. I have 3 steps to do at each of the 3 vehicle lengths. Now we're about to begin, so let's set the stage. This is a 2-way intersection where both of these streets are wide enough to fit 3 vehicles side by side, and there are no visual obstructions. And for this example, my direction of travel does not have the stop sign. So as I close in on the intersection, I'll need to get started with step 1, seeing habits. And I know that my first seeing habit is always a sweeping scan. Okay, I've reached the 3 vehicle length distance, and I can also say 15 meters or 50 feet away from the intersection. So I will start my sweeping scan at the corner to my left, and then my eyes continue to sweep through all of the areas around the intersection. And because I have no visual blockages, I can see that there is nothing to cause me any problems at this moment. And then I'll use that information that I just got from the sweeping scan to help me decide what I'll do in regards to speed control. Now, because I don't have a stop sign, unless someone does something silly, I should have the right-of-way, which means my speed will only need to change if I see something that worries me, which I do not. And then for step 3, communication, well, at this point, there is nothing to communicate. Okay, that's it. I've now finished all of the steps required for 3 vehicle lengths from the intersection. So pretty simple. And now I've moved along far enough that I've reached number 2 in the countdown. 2 vehicle lengths from the intersection. So now it's just a matter of starting the process all over again, but with a slight change. Now for step 1, the seeing habit that I'll perform is a quick scan of the intersection. So as you may recall, there are 8 important checkpoints to a quick scan. And what I hope to accomplish by doing this scan is to hone in on each of these 8 important areas to see if there's any potential problems that may have come up since the last scan. Now, because there is such good visibility, and this is a very simple maneuver, the information that I just got from the quick scan tells me that I don't need to make any changes regarding speed control and communication. Okay, that's 2 down. So here I am, closing in on 1 vehicle length from the intersection. So I'm back at step 1, which means at this distance, the seeing habit is the My Scan. Now remember, this seeing habit is called My Scan for a reason. It's all about me, myself, and I. So I'm only concerned with the 3 areas that could be a potential problem for me. So I do one last scan, looking towards the 2 to 3 vehicle length distance in each direction. Starting to my left, then I look ahead, and I finish to my right. And then once I believe that it's 100% safe, and only when I believe it's 100%, not 90, not 95, 100% safe, at that point, I will enter the intersection and go. Now, intersections are not a safe place to be, so the faster I can get out of there, the safer I will be. Now, I don't mean stomp on the gas and squeal those tires. I just mean I don't dawdle. D-A-W-D-L-E. Dawdle. So, for example, if I had to slow slightly or I wasn't at the maximum safe speed for the area I was driving in, well then at this point I would get back on the gas pedal and in a smooth, controlled manner, I would start gaining some speed as I continued through the intersection. That's what I mean by don't dawdle. So that brings us to the end of this first scenario, where we had no reason to stop at the intersection. Now, before we move on to the next scenario, if you're enjoying this video, then please hit that like button. And subscribing to the channel is a huge help. Okay, now let's move on to the next scenario, where my direction of travel now has the stop sign. So here we are where, surprise, surprise, we're starting at a distance of 3 vehicle lengths from the intersection. Okay, so nothing changes for step 1. The seeing habit is still the sweeping scan, but this is a really good example of why we do this scan so early. During the scan, I saw that I have a stop sign, and knowing this nice and early allows me a lot of space to prepare for a nice, smooth, controlled stop. Now, when it comes to step 2, speed control, because I have a stop sign, I now have to deal with something called stopping speed. And when it comes to stopping speed, you're going to split your braking into 2 parts. First, a safe-minded driver wants to be down to a speed that is no higher than 20 kilometers per hour, which is roughly 10 miles per hour, by the time you reach 2 vehicle lengths from the intersection. And the next thing that greatly affects speed control is something called stopping distance. Now, stopping distance can vary quite a bit because different things can affect your stopping distance. Things such as speed, road conditions like loose gravel, or weather conditions like snow or heavy rain, or even your vehicle's condition can be a big factor. Like maybe you're between paychecks, so you're putting off that brake job that you know needs to happen. And there's even you, the driver, to take into consideration. Your skill level matters, your concentration at the moment matters, maybe you're not feeling well, etc., etc. So if you have any of these type of issues come up, you'll need to take them into consideration and possibly increase your stopping distance. Now, for step 3, communication, well, your vehicle is actually doing this job for you because your brake lights are communicating to everyone behind you that you're slowing to a stop. So you would only need to step in if you knew your brake lights weren't working, meaning in that case you would then need to use your hand signals to communicate that you were slowing to a stop. Okay, that's everything completed for the 3 vehicle length distance. And now we've reached 2 vehicle lengths from the intersection. So that means it's time for a quick scan of each of these 8 important checkpoints. And after the scan, I'm back at step 2, dealing with speed control. Because now that I'm at this 2 vehicle length distance, I know that I need to continue braking to try and meet my next stopping goal, which is to get down to a speed that is no higher than 10 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour by the time I reach 1 vehicle length from the intersection. So once again, I have some braking to do. Okay, 2 down, 1 to go. Now, because there's a stop that needs to happen, things need to change in the seeing habits department. So at the one vehicle length distance, normally the seeing habit that I would have done would be the My Scan. But since I have to come to a stop, it doesn't make sense to do that scan this early. So in this scenario, the seeing habit that I will do is the rearview mirror scan to make sure all is good behind me since I'm braking to a stop. And that's the only seeing habit that I'll do right now until I'm fully stopped. And now that brings us to step 2, which is where I'll continue to brake down to a nice, smooth, relaxed stop. And I will know that I'm stopped because I will actually feel the car settle, which kind of feels like it drops just a tiny bit. And FYI, for those of you who still need to do a road test, this is exactly what the examiner will be looking for, or shall I say feeling for, when you come to a stop. And trust me, you will know what I mean about feel the car drop a little bit when you feel it. And then in regards to communication, well, let's just say ditto. It's just as it was the last few times. Your brake lights are on, 'cause you're braking. So the 3-2-1 plan did its job. It got me to the intersection nice and safe, and this is where we part ways until the next intersection comes along. And then once I come to a stop, the next step is to figure out when it's going to be safe to take off again. And to do that, I'm actually going to use the quick scan seeing habit to check on all vehicles and pedestrians that may be in my path of travel. And I'll continue to go through those 8 checkpoints on a loop if that's necessary until I see that I may be able to take off in a few seconds. And then once the last vehicle or pedestrian that I was waiting for has cleared my path, and I believe that it is 100% safe to go, then this is when I'll do that last My Scan, just to be extra sure of my safety, and then I'm out of there. And then once I've cleared the intersection and I'm heading on down the street, I will check my rearview mirror and then my speedometer as I continue to gain speed up to whatever speed is legal and or the safest speed for the area. Okay then, once again we're at the end of this scenario where we talked about what to do when we're going straight through at the intersection after stopping at a stop sign. Now I'd like to mention a few things about going straight through at an uncontrolled intersection. So if you have great visibility like this here, well then speed-wise, you're fine continuing at whatever speed you feel is legal and, more importantly, safe for the area that you're driving in. Now in a case like this, I should reach the intersection first. But if the red vehicle is traveling faster than me and it starts to look like we're both going to arrive at the same time, well then the right-of-way goes to the vehicle to the right. So as you can see in this diagram, the red vehicle is to my right. So I will have to stop and allow them their right-of-way. Now, as you can see, this time I'm the vehicle on the right. So in this case, the right-of-way should go to me. But when it comes to right-of-way, I will never fight for it. Now, that doesn't mean I will be hesitant about taking my right-of-way. It just means if it looks like the other driver isn't going to do the right thing and give me the right-of-way, well then, as a safe-minded driver, I will give it up and just let them go. Now, here we have a typical situation where both vehicles are arriving at the same time and no one has a turn signal on. So one can assume that both vehicles are going straight through at the intersection. But remember what they say, when you assume something, it makes an ass out of you and me. So So as a safe-minded driver, as I approached the intersection, I would ease off the gas a little bit, or even brake a little bit if I felt that was needed, just to give me a little extra room so that the other vehicle could start into the intersection first. Then, once I was 100% sure that they really were going to continue on straight through, then at that point, I would get back on the gas and enter the intersection myself. And that's it. We've now finished going through all the different ways you can go straight through at the intersection using the 3-2-1 plan. Then in the next video that I'll post next Tuesday, we'll do it all over again, but this time we'll be making left turns. So until next time, take care of yourself, and I will see you soon.